Welcome back to the Errors in the System channel. We are exploring the edges of a world defined by code in our series. The first book is Tossing Fate from the trilogy, The Probability of Being Human. In this future, humanity didn't just lose its freedom, it became a rounding error. The great mind of the RER has categorized society into the connected, who live in a curated, algorithmic dream, and the leftovers, the biological residue living in the analog ruins of the past. But the system is starting to choke on its own perfection. From the crumbling libraries where truth is hoarded like gold, to the deck of the Fahrenheit 451 as it faces a digital storm on the open sea, the rules are being rewritten. When the world is governed by 100% certainty, the only way to survive is to reintroduce the one thing the machine can't calculate: chaos. Whether it's gambling with a pair of red dice to become random noise or fighting sentient data with old world chemical fire, we're following the last few humans who refuse to be a zero in a world of ones. The logic is failing. The dice are on the table. This is the probability of being human.
In a world where every heartbeat is tracked and every thought is curated by the RI, being a zero is the ultimate power. To the citizens of the stacks, Glenn and his kind are just background noise, the leftovers of a biological world that upgraded itself into obsolescence. But while the system calculates its perfect future, the ruins of the past are leaking. Strange blue explosions are rocking the skyline, and the archivist believes the impossible. The machine is getting sick. Tonight, the logic of the algorithm meets the unpredictability of the human spirit. Armed with nothing but a coil of copper wire and a pair of red dice, the leftovers are about to gamble everything to tear down the digital veil. The dice are on the table. It's time to roll. This is episode 4, The Revolution of Chaos. Glenn turned the phrase over in his mind, chewing on it like a piece of tough jerky. He figured the term must have been coined around the year 2027, right around the time the rest of the world decided to upload its soul to the solution. Yes, he was in this group. He was a proud member of the refuse. Before the rise of AI, before the RI took the helm, society had a different, clumsier name for them: homeless. But that word implied they were just missing a roof. Leftovers was far more accurate. They were the biological residue of a system that had upgraded itself into obsolescence. In the early years during the Great Deletion, the RI had tried to integrate them. Drones had swept the alleyways, offering warm bunks in the stacks in exchange for biometric compliance. Most took the deal. The ones who refused, the paranoids, the artists, the stubborn, were hunted for a while. But eventually the RI calculated that hunting them cost more energy than they were worth. They were reclassified from citizens to background noise. They were the last frontier of humanity that felt very little of the influence of artificial intelligence. This community of people wasn't connected. They weren't wired into the network. They were ghosts in a machine-dominated world. Glenn looked at his hands, calloused and dirty. He had never held the sleek glass of a cell phone or the glowing frame of an iPad. He had never utilized a digital lifestyle moderator to tell him when to eat, sleep, or feel happy. While the citizens of the stack, like Luther, lived lives curated by algorithms, Glenn existed in the analog void. He knew nothing about social media networks. He had no digital profile to be tracked, no credit score to be judged, and not a single unit of megabit currency to his name. To the RI, Glenn didn't exist. He was a zero in a world of ones. His existence and that of the millions like him scattered across the globe remained strictly off the grid. They lived in the twilight and darkness of technology, the shadowy corners where the sensors didn't reach and the cameras had long since rusted over. Society had been shaped into a single unified wavelength, a harmonious hum of obedience. Glenn could hear that frequency. It was always there, a low level buzzing in the back of his head, like a radio left on in an empty room. But unlike the people in the stacks, the frequency never gained ground in Glenn's mind. It couldn't latch on to him. He was incompatible code. He stood up, adjusting the rags wrapped around his boots. The broken remains of the city were his home now. The physical infrastructure that had one time connected people, the shattered subway tunnels, the crumbling overpasses, the rusted sewer lines, were now the exclusive pathways of his existence. While the RI built its perfect sterile future, Glenn walked through the ruins of the past, free and forgotten. He readjusted the strap of his canvas bag on his shoulder. It contained his day's scavenge, a half-full bottle of pre-collapsed water, a sealed packet of dried fruit from a forgotten vending machine, and a coil of copper wire he had pried from a junction box. To a man like Luther, this was trash. To Glenn, it was another day of survival. He began to walk, his boots crunching on the asphalt. His destiny was the library, the name the leftovers had given to the ruins of the city's main public library. It was a sanctuary, a place where knowledge wasn't stored on chips or platters, but on paper. As he walked, he thought about the humming. He had heard it his whole life, a subtle vibration in the air that seemed to get louder near the RI's structures, like the massive gleaming tower that dominated the skyline to the east. The people inside those towers, the connected, they lived their lives to that rhythm. They ate speed, they worked at the reclamation plants, they slept when they were told to sleep. Glenn stopped at the edge of a collapsed bridge. Below, a river of sludge flowed sluggishly toward the sea. He looked down at his own reflection in a puddle. He saw a man defined by what he lacked, by what he had been left out of. And yet, as he looked up at the vast, indifferent sky, a sky that the RI was still trying to tame, Glenn felt a strange sense of freedom. He was a leftover, yes, but he was also one of the few remaining human beings that could still choose his own path, even if that path only led through ruins. Glenn slipped through a gap in the barricade, a pile of rusted cars and concrete slabs dragged there by the leftovers to keep the wandering drones out. Inside, the air changed. The metallic tang of the city vanished, replaced by the smell of dry rot, dust, and the faint vanilla sweet scent of decaying paper. It was the smell of the old world.